Barefoot shoes tend to be fairly polarizing. A lot of people either believe that they are the best thing ever, or they believe that they are a fitness gimmick. And my goal here with this video is to help you decide whether or not they're worth trying based on your specific use case and your constraints. So what barefoot shoes are is it's a shoe that has minimal or zero drop. So between the heel and the toe, your foot's basically going to stay parallel with the ground when you're in a standing position. So a traditional shoe is normally going to have a raised heel that's going to put your foot at a slightly downward angle. So this is not a traditional or cushioned supportive shoe. It really is designed to essentially provide the bare minimum protection for your foot while most closely emulating natural movement of your foot in barefoot walking. It's got a thin, flexible sole that allows your foot to move more naturally, and the shoe kind of contorts with your foot rather than your foot being confined to the structure of a shoe, of a more traditional shoe. So where barefoot shoes tend to work extremely well, in my experience, has been strength training. So I use them for pretty much all of my training. You can do circuits, cardio, strength training, everything without changing shoes. Before I was using barefoot shoes, I would switch between like a squat shoe, a tennis shoe, like a traditional running shoe. And then sometimes if I didn't want to take a squat shoe with me, I would squat barefoot or deadlift barefoot. And this prevents a lot of that changing in and out between different shoes. It's good for general movement and mobility. Wearing a barefoot shoe is going to cause you to focus more on the way that you move throughout the world, and it'll really call attention to your movement limitations in terms of traditional exercises like the barbell squat. You're really going to notice things like poor ankle mobility and things like that. And what that does is it gives you feedback so that you can focus on mobility, maybe work on your flexibility and mobility, so that you can use and execute exercises much better and more effectively, rather than hiding your poor movement ability with a traditional shoe. One of the biggest signals that I found with barefoot shoes that made me believe that they're working well for me and that I prefer wearing them was anytime I go back to wearing a traditional shoe, my feet, my low back, my knees, everything feels terrible after I go back to wearing a normal shoe. And I know that's kind of a spoiler for what I'm going to tell you about barefoot shoes, but A, they aren't for everybody, and B, there are some specific use cases where I don't think barefoot shoes are preferable, even in my own life. So where they're not optimized or where you shouldn't be using barefoot shoes, at least for me, I haven't been able to incorporate sprint training. So if I'm running and doing sprints, I can't wear barefoot shoes to do that. I haven't gotten to that ability yet with barefoot shoes, and I don't know that I'll ever try to or want to. I still use a traditional running shoe if I'm going to be doing any kind of sprint training. The other thing that I believe that they're not really optimized for is endurance and stamina focused training, specifically running, I guess. So if you're working on endurance and stamina and everything with running, it's going to be better for you to wear a normal running shoe, because barefoot shoes are going to fatigue your muscles and your feet a lot faster than your cardiovascular system, at least in my case. They're pretty unforgiving when it comes to sprinting and long distance running and everything. The other thing that they're absolutely not optimized for is hard and unforgiving work environments. So for example, doing yard work, digging ditches, whatever, with a shovel, obviously you're not going to be wanting to use barefoot shoes for that, because you need to protect your feet. So here's the important thing about barefoot shoes. This is the kind of framing that you need to look at them as. Shoes are tools. They're not identities. So if you're using a barefoot shoe for absolutely everything, and you're dogmatic about these are the best thing in the world, all other shoes are terrible, that's not what this is. Barefoot shoes are just one tool in your toolbox. Cushion shoes, traditional shoes, work boots, trainers, all those other things, they all have a specific job. They are all tools in your toolbox that you can use for different applications. Barefoot shoes just so happen to be the tool that I go to the most. So with that being said, if you are going to transition to barefoot shoes like I have over the past couple of months, you're going to want to transition very slowly. And what you're going to do when you're transitioning to barefoot shoes is you're going to have to focus more on your mobility. You're going to have to actually do mobility work, stretch, exercise, work on your strength in your feet and your knees and your legs. When you're transitioning to barefoot shoes, pay close attention to what feels like soreness versus what feels like pain. Obviously, soreness might just be something that comes along with transitioning to barefoot shoes. And if something feels like pain, then something's probably off, and you need to reassess and reevaluate. So if you're wanting one shoe to do everything for you, barefoot shoes are maybe the closest thing to that, but they still don't check every single box ever, and you can't only use barefoot shoes for everything. You could, but you're going to be taking on significant risk. If you're expecting barefoot shoes to magically resolve some chronic pain, knee pain, low back pain, things like that, it's not going to automatically do those things. You have to put in the work to manage those things. And again, barefoot shoes are just a tool for working on that and managing that. So for your context and your season of life, here's some things that you can kind of look at. What you're training for, how much you move on a day-to-day basis, and whether or not you're managing your own pain and everything outside of your training. And maybe the best lens that you can look at this through is, are you in a season of life where you need to protect your feet most of the time, or are you in a season of life where you're looking to refine your mobility and seek feedback for your mobility issues, and really work on mobility and flexibility and your movement patterns and everything? If that's the case for you, then it's probably a good time to try out barefoot shoes. Obviously, barefoot shoes are probably a no-go if you're training for a specific event, such as like a marathon or a specific competition. You're going to have to use the best tool for those jobs rather than a barefoot shoe. Endurance and performance goals, like we talked about, or if you have like an orthopedic condition or a need for constant protection, like we talked about with your working environment, things like that. So in my personal case, I mostly wear barefoot shoes. I've pretty much entirely replaced my toolbox or my shoe lineup with barefoot shoes, but I still keep a pair of hiking boots for working conditions, as well as running shoes for specific applications like we talked about, like endurance training and sprints. So barefoot shoes are a great lifestyle tool. They're not a performance tool. They're not going to suddenly alleviate all of your pain, but they are a great tool that you can use. They're extremely useful when they're used intentionally. So I went ahead and linked a couple of barefoot shoes in the description down below. Feel free to check them out. They're just reference points. They're not really necessarily recommendations. But if you are interested in trying them out, those are some good options. And that's the framework. Use what works best for you.